Hello and welcome to the Fluent Journey. I'm Jasmine, your host, and I'm so excited to have you here. This is the podcast where we explore fun and practical ways to improve your English, one conversation at a time. Today's episode is all about daily routines. Have you ever wanted to talk about your daily habits in English but weren't sure how? Well, you're in the right place. We'll take you through a full day, from waking up in the morning to winding down at night, while learning useful English phrases along the way. And to make it even more exciting, we have a special guest joining us today. They'll be sharing their daily routine, and together we'll explore essential vocabulary, common expressions, and tips to sound more natural in English. So, whether you're listening while commuting, cooking, or just relaxing, get ready to learn and have fun. Let's dive in. All right. Now that we've set the stage, let's jump into our first topic, morning routines. Our special guest today is Glinda, and she's here to share how she starts her day. Morning routines are such an important part of our daily lives, and they're also a great way to practice English because we do these things every single day. So, Glinda, tell us, how does your morning usually begin?
Well, my mornings start pretty early. I usually wake up at around 6:30 a.m. The first thing I do is turn off my alarm. And sometimes I feel like staying in bed for a few more minutes. But I know I have to get up, so I get out of bed and stretch a little to wake myself up properly. Then, I head to the bathroom to brush my teeth and wash my face. It really helps me feel fresh and ready to start the day. After that, I take a quick shower and get dressed. On most days, I wear something casual, like jeans and a t-shirt. But if I have an important meeting or event, I might dress up a little more.
That sounds like a great start to the day. You've already used some really useful English phrases here. Let's highlight a few of them for our listeners. First, you said, I wake up at 6:30 a.m. This is a simple way to talk about what time you start your day. But here's a common mistake learners make. They say, I wake up at 6:30 a.m. o'clock. We don't need to say o'clock when we already have a.m. or p.m. So just, I wake up at 6:30 a.m. is correct. Now another useful phrase is, I get out of bed. Many people mix up wake up and get up. Wake up means when you stop sleeping, but get up means when you actually leave the bed. So if you open your eyes but stay in bed for a while, you can say, I woke up but I didn't get up yet.
That's a good point. Sometimes I wake up but stay in bed checking my phone for a few minutes before I actually get up.
Exactly. Now, you also mentioned I get dressed. This means you put on your clothes for the day. But here's another tip. Many English learners say I wear my clothes instead of I get dressed. While wear is correct when you're already wearing something, I am wearing a red shirt, we use get dressed when we put on clothes. Now, what do you usually have for breakfast?
For breakfast, I usually make coffee and have something light, like toast with butter or fruit. If I have more time, I'll cook eggs or oatmeal. I try to eat something healthy to give me energy for the day.
That's a great habit. And there's another useful phrase, make coffee. In English, we don't say cook coffee or do coffee. The correct phrase is make coffee. So, to recap, today we learned useful phrases like wake up, get dressed, and make coffee. Try using these in your own daily routine. Now let's move on to what happens after breakfast, work and study routines. Now that we've covered the morning routine, let's move on to the next part of the day, work and study routines. Whether you go to school, work in an office, or even work from home, this part of the day is usually filled with tasks, meetings, and responsibilities. So, Glinda, tell us, what does your typical work or study day look like?
Well, after finishing my breakfast and getting ready, I usually leave my house around 8 a.m. Since I work in an office, I have to commute every morning. I usually take the bus, but sometimes, if I'm in a hurry, I take a taxi instead. While I'm commuting, I like to listen to podcasts or read a book to make good use of my time. It takes me about 30 minutes to get to work. Once I arrive at the office, the first thing I do is check my emails. I always like to start my day by organizing my tasks, so I go through my inbox to see if there are any important messages or updates from my colleagues. After that, I usually make a to-do list to plan my day. My mornings are usually quite busy because we have team meetings and project discussions. If it's a Monday, we have a weekly team meeting where we discuss our goals for the week and everyone shares what they're working on. During the day, I spend a lot of time working on projects, making presentations, and attending meetings. If I have a big deadline coming up, I try to focus without distractions. But I also make sure to take short breaks, maybe grabbing a cup of coffee or chatting with my colleagues for a few minutes before getting back to work. I think it's important to take breaks to stay productive and avoid feeling too exhausted.
That sounds like a well-structured workday, and you used some really useful work-related expressions. Let's go through a few of them so our listeners can learn how to use them in their own conversations. First, you mentioned check my emails. This is something a lot of us do at the beginning of the workday, right? But many English learners make a small mistake when talking about this. Some people say see my emails or watch my emails, but the correct phrase is check my emails. So, if you want to sound natural, say, I check my emails every morning before I start working. Another great phrase you used is take a short break. In English, we don't usually say do a break or make a break. The correct verb to use here is take. So, if you need to step away from your work for a few minutes, you can say, I'm going to take a short break. Now, you also mentioned attending meetings. This is an important phrase for work situations. Some learners say I go in a meeting or I do a meeting, but the natural way to say it is I attend a meeting or simply I have a meeting. You can say something like I have a team meeting every Monday morning or I attended an important meeting yesterday. These small details make a big difference in how fluent you sound.
That's really helpful. I've also noticed that when I'm working, I often need to ask my coworkers about their schedules. For example, if I want to set up a meeting, I usually ask them, are you available this afternoon? Or, do you have time tomorrow morning? Are there any other good ways to ask about someone's schedule?
That's a great question. When talking to a coworker or even a classmate about their schedule, you can ask in a few different ways. One common way is, what does your schedule look like? This is a polite and natural way to ask when someone is free. Another way is, do you have a moment to talk? If you just need a quick discussion. If you're planning a longer meeting, you can say, when would be a good time for us to meet? This sounds professional and polite. Let's do a quick role play to practice this. I'll pretend to be your coworker, and you can ask me about my availability for a meeting. Ready?
Sure. Okay, Jasmine, I need to schedule a meeting with you. What does your schedule look like this week?
Good question. I have meetings on Monday and Wednesday mornings, but I'm free on Thursday afternoon. Would that work for you?
Yes, Thursday afternoon sounds great. Let's meet then.
Perfect. That was a great example of a natural conversation in a workplace setting. Listeners, try practicing this with a friend or even by yourself. Think about how you can ask someone about their schedule and try saying it out loud. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. All right. So far, we've learned some really useful work-related expressions like check my emails, attend a meeting, take a short break, and what does your schedule look like? Try using these phrases in your own work or study routine. Now, let's move on to the next part of the day. Afternoon and evening activities. What do we do after work? How do we relax and recharge? Stay tuned to find out. All right. We've talked about the morning routine and the work or study schedule, but what happens after that? Afternoons and evenings are just as important as the first half of the day because they give us time to relax, enjoy our hobbies, and connect with other people. Whether we spend this time being productive, socializing, or just unwinding, it's essential to find a balance between work and personal life. Glinda, How do you usually spend your afternoons once you're finished with work?
Well, my afternoons always start with lunch, and I like to take my time enjoying a good meal. I usually have lunch around 1 p.m., but sometimes, if work is busy, I eat a little later. If I'm working from home, I prepare something simple, like a salad, a sandwich, or maybe some rice and vegetables. But if I'm at the office, I prefer to go out for lunch with my colleagues. We usually visit a small cafe near the office, or if we don't have much time, we just order food from a nearby restaurant and eat together in the break room. Eating lunch with coworkers is a great way to take a break from work and chat about things outside of our job. After lunch, I like to move around a bit, especially since I spend a lot of time sitting at my desk. That's why I usually go for a walk in the afternoon, just for 10 or 15 minutes to get some fresh air and clear my mind. I find that walking helps me feel refreshed and more focused for the rest of the day. If I'm working remotely, I might take a quick walk around my neighborhood or just step outside for a moment to stretch. I really believe that short breaks like this can make a big difference in my energy levels and productivity.
That sounds like a great habit. And you just used a very useful phrase, go for a walk. This is the correct way to say that you take a short walk for relaxation or exercise. A common mistake English learners make is saying, make a walk or do a walk. But the natural phrase in English is, go for a walk. So, if you want to sound fluent, you can say something like, I go for a walk after lunch to clear my mind, or she goes for a walk every evening before dinner. Now, after your workday is done, do you have any hobbies or activities that help you relax?
Yes, in the evenings, I always try to spend time doing something I enjoy. If I have free time, I hang out with friends and maybe go to a coffee shop or a park to chat and catch up. If I don't go out, I like to stay home and do something relaxing. One of my favorite ways to unwind is watching movies or TV series, so I often watch a movie in the evening, especially if I don't have any work left to do. Sometimes, I prefer reading a book instead, especially if I want a quiet and peaceful evening. I think it's important to have hobbies that help you disconnect from work and refresh your mind.
That's so true. And you mentioned some very useful phrases again. Hang out with friends is a casual way to say that you spend time together. Instead of saying meet with my friends, which sounds a little formal, you can say hang out. For example, I hang out with my friends every weekend, or let's hang out after work. And of course, another great phrase is watch a movie. Some learners mistakenly say see a movie at home, but watch is the correct verb when referring to movies or TV series. You can say, I watched a great movie last night, or we're watching a new TV show. So, after relaxing in the evening, what does your night routine look like before you go to bed?
Well, after dinner, I start winding down and preparing for bed. I like to have a calm and relaxing routine before I sleep because it helps me rest better. One thing I enjoy doing at night is reading, especially if I didn't have time during the day. I might read a few chapters of a novel, or even an article online. Another habit I've developed is journaling. I like to write about my day, my thoughts, or even just make a list of things I need to do the next day. It helps me stay organized and also clears my mind before sleeping. Since I'm learning English, I also try to review vocabulary at night. Sometimes I look back at the new words I learned during the day and I try to make sentences with them. Other times, I listen to English podcasts or audiobooks while I'm getting ready for bed. I think it's a great way to keep improving my English without feeling like I'm studying too hard.
That's such a smart way to incorporate English learning into your daily routine. Nighttime is actually a great time to review and absorb new language skills. And you mentioned review vocabulary, which is such an effective habit for language learners. Instead of just memorizing words, it's better to review them in context by making sentences, reading, or listening. Another great way to learn English at night is by listening to audiobooks or even watching videos in English with subtitles. This allows you to hear how native speakers pronounce words and phrases naturally. You can also keep a language journal where you write about your day in English, even if it's just a few sentences. For example, you can write something like, "Today I went to work and had a team meeting. I learned a new word, productive. I felt very productive because I finished all my tasks on time." Writing like this helps you remember new words and practice using them correctly.
That's such a good idea. I think I'll start doing that more often because it's an easy way to practice English daily. And before I go to sleep, the last thing I do is set my alarm for the next morning. I try to go to bed early, but sometimes I stay up too late watching videos or reading. I know I should sleep earlier because getting enough rest is really important.
Yes, and you just used another useful phrase, set my alarm. Some learners say, fix my alarm or put my alarm, but the natural way to say it is set my alarm. So, if you need to wake up at 6 a.m., you would say, I set my alarm for 6 a.m. And of course, we can also say, I go to bed early or I go to bed late. For example, I try to go to bed early on weekdays, but on weekends, I go to bed late. So, to summarize, we talked about how you can use your evenings to relax, socialize, and practice English naturally. We learned useful phrases like go for a walk, hang out with friends, watch a movie, review vocabulary, listen to audiobooks, and set my alarm. These are all phrases you can use when talking about your daily routine. I challenge our listeners to try using at least 3 of these phrases today. Maybe write about your routine in English, or try explaining it to a friend. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, Glinda, for sharing your daily routine with us. I hope our listeners found it helpful. And remember, learning English is a journey, so keep practicing a little every day. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fluent Journey for more episodes. See you next time.